Jonathan Agnew here for another classic view from the boundary. The date is August the 10th, 1991, and West Indies are playing England at the Oval. The tourists are still a great force, but perhaps the likes of Richard and Haynes are just past their best. This was a game that lives long in the memory for many reasons. Phil Tufnell's 6 wickets in the first innings, Robin Smith's 100, and yes, a certain broadcasting mishap involving me and Brian Johnston. More on that in due course. On the Saturday of the Test, we had a real treat as Lawrence of Arabia star Peter O'Toole paid a visit for one of the most memorable views we've had. With wickets tumbling in the West Indies' first innings, O'Toole had to rush to South London to get to the ground. Brian Johnston was asking the questions, but first here's Peter O'Toole on the special place that our game holds in his heart.
I'm often asked why cricket means so much to me. And apart from the reasons that it appeals to multitudes of people and has appealed to multitudes of people over the hundreds of years, it's this high drama.
Yeah.
Tufnell comes on, takes a wicket. Botham returns, takes a wicket, catches. Viv Richards, a great king, delays his entrance, delays and delays and delays. Finally comes on with a couple of balls to play before lunch to a standing ovation. And of course could have been out first ball.
Yeah. Have you ever had an ovation as good as that?
No,
it lasted.
no.
I'm sure you have when you've taken a curtain call, but that one lasted at length of time. He took the wicket about 2 minutes or so.
And I believe he was deeply moved. And who wouldn't be?
Well, Bradman said he wouldn't, because when I asked him whether he had tears in his eyes when there were 3 chairs when he went out, he said, no, I wasn't. But I bet he was, really.
I saw Bradman play at Headingley in 48, and I think he scored 30, 32, 33 or something, having promised to score a century in the evening before. And he was out quite early to a bowler whose name I've forgotten. And as he walked back to the pavilion, there were no tears. He looked extraordinarily grumpy, very, very thoughtful with that huge cap and walking very, very slowly indeed.
That baggy green cap. This was a Bramall Lane, presumably?
No, it was a Headingley.
At Headingley, was it? Yeah. Before we go on talking about cricket, I've got to ask you 2 questions. Have you brought your bagpipes? Because sometimes we have a little musical interlude on the We've had all sorts of things. David Essex and I have sung Underneath the Arches. And the other thing, I'm colourblind, but I gather those are green socks.
They are green socks.
Now, why do you always wear green socks?
Because my daddy was very, very superstitious, and he wouldn't allow me to wear anything green on a racetrack. So my way of being disobedient was to wear something green, which he couldn't see, which were under my trousers.
He was not unconnected with the bookmaking business, is that right?
He was not unconnected with the bookmaking business. He was, yes, plugged in. He was a bookie.
Yeah. I mean, were you a runner for him and all that?
I was a runner, but not exactly an official.
Let's get back to cricket, which is the object of the exercise. I mean, when did you first start playing? Did you play in Ireland as a boy?
No, I was brought up in England. Despite my Irish name and nationality, I was reared in England and reared in the north of England. So cricket for me began in Yorkshire.
Good place to start.
Where else? And I remember again memories. The first real turn-on for cricket for me was being taken to the new cinema over and over and over again to watch Hutton's 364
right.
Here.
Yeah.
In what, 38?
1938. Yeah.
I was 6. And the great joy and the cheers that in the cinema when he popped it in, very clear to me. And then towards the end of the war, do you know Roundhay Park or of Roundhay?
I do. I went there when it was a test match last year. They had a sort of fete there. I went. Yeah.
Well, I was there last Sunday, just to have a little wander around.
It's a marvellous place.
And towards the end of the war, Sir Leary Constantine and Arthur Wood,
right, great wicketkeeper,
they put together Sunday sides. And in those days, it was the Australian overseas touring team, something as complicated as that. And we little boys could be chosen as ball boys to stand on the boundary. And one of my great moments, in fact my greatest moment still in cricket, was, even though I wasn't playing, I was standing at, was Constantine left-handed?
No, right-handed.
Right-handed. Standing at long mid-off.
Yeah.
And he whacked the ball. He scored 50 in 18 deliveries. And he whacked the ball over the ropes, and it fell into my hands.
Oh, lovely.
And I remember this huge man just beaming and waving his bat It was a lovely moment.
You sound just like the Bertie Wonder. You knew how many deliveries he had. I mean, were you that keen? Did you keep a score?
In those days, yes, of
Did
course.
you?
Yeah.
And then now what about the playing talent? You see, if you go to Lord's in the winter in the indoor school, you can be seen there.
True. Well, I love to turn up and play. I love to be with cricketers. I'm not any good anymore. My wish nowadays is to be involved in a stand. If I can plug up one end and let somebody else do the scoring and occasionally pop in a little single and charge up and down the wicket.
Have you got the Trevor Bailey forward defensive?
Yes, I've got that. Much the amusement of all my chums. When you say play, it is an overstatement. What I do is creak out to the square and hope to plonk a little timber on the ball. I hope to turn my own arm over and get a maiden or perhaps a wicket.
What, leg tweakers or anything?
Well, I have a delivery which is really, really special. It does absolutely nothing.
Well, that's very good.
From
You see.
leaving the hand to pitching, nothing at all. And this confuses many batsmen.
But you do go into the indoor school. I mean, who do you go and play with there? You go once a week, roughly.
Well, I usually go with young chums who's delighted to try and knock my head off. There's one sitting exactly behind me right now. They love it. They love to fling down leather and try and take my head off.
But I saw someone who I know who was, remember, I think of Bronsbury, and he says that every Friday you go and coach the boys there. Is that right?
Well, that's a delight for me. I like, again, I'm with my standard, under nines. I love to less coach than encourage young boys.
I mean, do you give them a demonstration of your strokes?
No,
or do you show them?
I'm the bowling machine and the umpire. And,
This is great, isn't it? Because we've got to get at the young, haven't we?
well, this is why Bronsbury is such an extraordinary club. If you go there Friday night, it's one of those delightful sights in cricket. The entire pitch is filled with little boys. The nets are filled. There are something like 100 little things in white there. And it is a lovely sight.
It's great credit to the club that they get them there. They're doing very well, aren't they, Bronsbury, to do that?
Very well indeed. And my job is not to coach. I don't want to say, look, get your foot to the ball, get over it. I don't want to. I like just to cheer them up and encourage them and run and keep their eye on the ball, all those things.
I'm sorry.
For cricket is in the hands of the young.
Do you play with odd sort of actors and people still? Do you turn out for Lord's Taverners or for...
Well, I play for a club called Lazarusian.
Ah, I don't really know that one.
Well, you may. We're not doing too badly.
What sort of people do you play?
Well, we played some high-class stuff. We played Northamptonshire professional coaches, and we drew with them. Have we won anything yet?
Yeah, yes, we won against Sandbench.
One against who?
Sandbench.
Really? And where does Toole bat, though?
He opens.
You go in first?
Yes.
Against all the hostile
Against all
fast
the
bowling?
hostile stuff, yeah.
And what do you look like in a helmet?
Well, we were playing in Northamptonshire, and a distinguished pro was in the other side, and he insisted that we all wear helmets because the pitch was bouncing and taking spin.
Good gracious.
So I went in the pavilion and I was given a helmet. And I couldn't find my way out of the pavilion. I stumbled around and I couldn't see where the door was. And I felt, and I'm sure I looked like a Dalek. So I took it off.
Yeah, I mean, how people look through that visa.
No idea.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? And you can't hear either. You can't hear the chap calling for a run or anything.
Like...
And what about the bowling then? Do you get any wickets?
Sometimes I get a wicket or two. I get a few maidens. For me, a one run now is what 6 runs meant when I was a boy. 1 wicket now means a 5-wicket haul. If I do a piece of decent fielding, I'm very happy. If I take a catch, I'm delirious. And as long as I don't become a passenger with the team, I'll keep on playing.
Are you good at sprinting around the boundary?
Oh, that's a great sight. I'm greatly encouraged by my team. I say, go on, off he goes, and I puff and pant.
Well, this encouragement, you see, it's spread to county cricket now. Everybody claps the whole time. Have you noticed? They clap before the chap bowls. They clap if it misses the stumps by 10 feet. And it's a great thing. They'd say it inspires people. Does it inspire you if everybody claps you? Yes.
Well, yes, it wouldn't deter me. It wouldn't put me off.
I think we last met in the box watching, was it the test match?
Was at the Lord's.
Do you go quite a bit?
Well, this summer I'm watching as much cricket as I possibly can. And I always do watch as much cricket as I possibly can. Wherever I go in the world, it'll be at the West Indies or Australia. I was in Australia at Christmas watching.
Yeah.
Which brings me to David Gower.
Right.
We've I've had long discussions with lots of interested people about David Gower, and we've decided on a solution. David will go to live in the West Indies until he qualifies as a resident. And then he will play for the West Indies and come back here at the age of 37 and tonk everybody all around.
I think
the
he has
park.
to live there a bit longer. But after he played for one country, he'll probably have to live for about 10 years. But
Well,
he'd be all right at 50, wouldn't he?
Maybe they could alter the rules a little in the West Indies. At 37, he could come back.
I mean, he's obviously a hero of yours. We'd have loved to have seen him playing here. Who are the past heroes you've had? I mean, in the past when you were a boy, you've mentioned Hutton and things.
Well, Hutton was my god until along came a tall, handsome man called Flying Officer Miller.
Ah, K.R. Miller.
And to this day, he's my god, my cricketing
He's probably
god.
still over here. He spends most of the summer here. Have you seen him this summer?
No, I've not, but I met him in Sydney about a decade ago, and we had a long, long chat about the old days.
He's a marvellous telephoner. If he knew your birthday, he'd ring you wherever it was from Sydney.
Marvellous cricketer. I remember watching him play a long innings. I don't know where or when. I remember his back foot, like a stanchion,
Yeah.
straight and like a stanchion, moving out to everything. And he was everything I wanted to be when I was a little boy.
Is
Great, tall.
Funnily enough, you mentioned that because when he played slow bowling, sometimes he nearly did the splits because his back leg was static in the crease, and he stretched forward with his first, and sometimes he looks he was about to do the splits. Very painful. But well, it is, isn't it? Have you ever
I've never
that?
done the splits, not intentionally.
Can we talk a little bit about yourself? Because you didn't, at the start, appear to be sort of in an acting family or anything. How did you get into acting?
Oh, looking back on it now, there seems to be an inevitable logic to it all, but it wasn't. I really stumbled into it from one thing to another. Somebody got ill and I took over in an amateur production, and then someone said, you ought to do it professionally. And I thought, well, shall I try this? And then I got a scholarship to the RADA, and it went from there.
Yeah, and you got the scholarship by rather just barging in and making a nuisance of yourself, so I'm told.
Well,
So Kenneth Barnes heard you and...
You're very well informed.
Well, I know people at RADA, and they said you were making so much noise. He came out and said, what's going on? And said, well, give the chap a test. And having given you the test, he gave you a scholarship. Is that right? It's too good to be true.
It's not quite true, but what is true is that I'd spent the night in Stratford-on-Avon watching Michael Redgrave play King Lear and looking for somewhere to sleep. I had no money. I slept in a field with a chum, and we'd covered ourselves with what we thought was straw, and it was indeed merely the cosy to a dung pile. And so when we'd thumbed our lift into London, we weren't exactly fragrant, but the lorry driver dropped us at Euston Station.
Pretty quickly, I should think. It was
Very quickly. And, well, it was... Even that was a bit terrifying. It was a lorry carrying beer barrels. And we were standing on the beer barrels, rattling around. Got off at Euston, aiming for a men's hostel where we had indeed had booked a bed. And I passed the RADA. And I thought, oh...
Royal Academy of
Case it.
Dramatic Art, yes.
And I popped in, and I began a conversation with the sergeant, the commissioner at the door, and we were looking at a bust of Bernard Shaw. And the sergeant and I were telling stories about Bernard Shaw. And Sir Kenneth Barnes did come along and joined in the storytelling. And I think one of my stories may have intrigued him or something.
I think you smelled it. Were you still ponging then?
Well, my companion said you will be removed from there, O'Toole, by a person with a clothes peg on his nose.
I shall have to ask you about Lawrence of Arabia. Before that, though, they tell me your bagpipes played a big part in the first film part you got. Is that so? Kidnapped?
That's correct.
Did you have to actually play them in the film?
I did. It was my friend Peter Finch, another cricket fan, And Peter was playing in Stevenson's Kidnapped, and there was a part for Rob Roy McGregor's son, who had a bagpipe competition with the part that Peter was playing. And Finchy had said, "There's only one actor I know who plays the bagpipes."
Well, this is useful for promising young people who want on the stage, go and learn the bagpipes. You never know, you might get a part from it. Now, Lawrence...
Use them as a wicket, of course.
Have you ever taken them out and played out of the pitch? It might put off a few batsmen. Lawrence of Arabia, one or two others turned the part down. Did they not? Weren't you told? They said Finney turned it down.
Nice of them. I'm delighted that they did.
You snapped it up as soon as it was offered.
As soon as it came my way, I felt I was in the slips and the ball came my way. I thought I'll have that one. Yeah.
You were on a pretty sandy wicket, though, for a long time, weren't you?
Very. And Omar Sharif, another good cricketer.
Did you ever have any games in the desert?
In the middle of the desert, in
Did
120 degrees, yes, we played cricket to the astonishment of the Bedouin, who hadn't the foggiest idea what was going on.
Did they feel for you?
No, they didn't, but they looked at the ball with great suspicion, and then one of them picked it up and thought, "Oh, this is a wonderful weapon," and they were flinging it at each other.
Well, it did take an awful long time to do. I mean, it was a long film.
It took a couple of years.
Did it? Out of your life?
In my life, it became my life. It was more than just a film. It was a huge adventure. I mean, it was everything that a young 28-year-old man could wish, or I could wish at least, to be out into the desert, into the Holy Land, to be working with a genius, David Lean, with a first-class script by Robert Bolt, with a company of superb actors.
Quite a few in the company, to say the least. Thousands.
I need a score sheet, or I'll leave somebody out. But it really was. And I was like a young matador. Another bull would come in. I'd play with who's this morning? Anthony Quinn. Who's today? Alec Guinness. Who's today? Anthony Quayle. Who's today? Donald Wolfett. Who's today? Claude Rains. Who's today? Arthur Kennedy. Who's today? Jose Ferrer. It was astonishing.
Not a bad 11, that.
Not a bad.
Isn't it extraordinary how many you play and see a lot of them? You mentioned Peter Finch being mad, Trevor Hart. So many of them love playing cricket.
Yes, there is an affinity between this game and we'll think of C. Aubrey Smith, who captained his country.
Right, yes. Only one test match he played, and he captained England.
There we go, and he was an actor.
Did you ever play in Hollywood?
No, but I've watched that Hollywood, as you know, has a cricket team. But
yes.
Lots and lots of West Indians are now going to live in California. And down in the valley, they're setting up cricket matches. So it may take on. They call it in America, they call cricket baseball on Valium. I don't know quite what that means.
I don't know, but because the great David Niven, he played.
You need quite a lot of Valium against Curtly Ambrose, I imagine.
I saw him walking across the thing today, the grass towards me. He's a terrifying sight.
Bowler.
Bowler,
if he doesn't break down, that's going to be one of the greatest bowlers we've ever seen.
You heard that Jonathan Agnew and I disgraced ourselves yesterday by corpsing.
He knew exactly what was going to happen. He tried to step over the stumps and just flicked a bail with his right
He more or
hand.
less tried to do the splits over it, and unfortunately the inner part of his thigh must have just removed the bail.
He just didn't quite get his leg over.
Anyhow, he did very well indeed, batting 131 minutes and hit 3 fours. And then we had Lewis playing extremely well for his 47 not out. Agus, do stop it. And he was joined by De Freitas, who was in for 40 minutes, a useful little partnership there. They put on 35 in 40 minutes, and then he was caught by Dujan Walsh. Lawrence, always entertaining, batted for 35. 35 minutes, hit a 4 over the wicketkeepers. Agus, for goodness sake, stop it.
Yes, Lawrence played extremely well.
He hit a 4 over the wicketkeeper's head, and he was out for 9. And Tafel came in, batted for 12 minutes, and then was caught by Haynes off Patson for 2, and there were 54 extras. And England were all out for 419. I've stopped laughing now. I mean, have you had any experiences on the stage or on the film where you simply couldn't go on?
Oh, yes. Twice I've been in productions where the curtain have been pulled down, slowly down.
For real, can you give us what gave
Certainly.
you the...
One of my favourite moments was in Brighton, in a play which was not very successful and was not going to have a long life. And it was a complicated play and set on a strand with the corner of a little beachside cottage, and the back of the set was the sea. Lots and lots of gauzes and lights and complicated things to make it look like the sea. And indeed, I entered from the sea with Sylvia Sims in our bathing costumes. And a lovely man called Nicholas Meredith, no longer with us, a great giggler. And his first line was, "Good morning, Roger." I was Roger. And then he had to erect a deck chair, which is never, ever easy. It's a tricky business. Your fingers get trapped, and we've all tried to do deck chairs. And I remember the line very clearly because I heard it for 7 or 8 weeks. "Good morning, Roger. There's something about a deck chair. Austerity, poise, and comfort. The austerity is an illusion. The comfort is achieved only with difficulty, and the poise we leave to Pamela," which is silly. Well, he would do that line erecting a deck chair. Well, not once did he ever get the deck chair up. Not once. And Nick had a habit of twisting his hair into little spikes. This meant I am not giggling. Then when he coughed, this meant I am certainly not giggling. So there was Nick twisting these huge spikes on his head and coughing away. There was something about a deck chair. Austerity. And after an agonizing long time of not getting the lines out or not getting the deck chair up, he left behind this crumpled mass of timber and canvas and said, "I am going to post a letter." And
Was that in the script?
no, and walked into the sea. And he was... I thought, now, the only thing I could really think was, no, I did not do this. This is not me. This is perhaps the first time in my life. This is not me. I am not responsible. So I hid behind a palm tree. Nick was floundering around amongst the gauzes.
Looking for a letterbox in the
looking
sea.
for a letterbox in the sea, floundering about amongst the gauzes and electricity, at which point everything went spotty, sparks and flashes. And then onto the beach came a fireman in a brass helmet with an axe. And of course the curtain came very, very slowly down. The producer immediately looked at me and began wagging his finger. But it wasn't me.
No. What about on films? Lawrence,
Well,
you have
that's
a corpse
easy.
in
Oh,
Lawrence?
yes, many times.
Retakes, the whole thing?
Retakes, yes, but you can't see our
Who are the
gigglers.
people? It's when you catch people's eye. Who is the worst giggler then with you in Lawrence?
I think Anthony Quayle.
A very austere
Yes.
actor, a
But-
marvellous actor, very nice man.
Yes.
Unfortunately, died 2 years ago, didn't he?
He did.
Lucky enough to interview him. So a great corpser you are then, which is half the fun of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you find yourself, if you're playing anything at all, on this edge of not only being yourself, but watching yourself.
I mean, you've done a Shakespeare. Hamlet, you did a famous Hamlet. What about your...
That was funny, too.
Why?
I came on stage at the Old Vic to play Hamlet.
Yeah.
And I'd been down below with the stagehand trying to pick a winner. And walked onto the stage and began to... And I knew that Noel Coward was out front, and Noel was sitting in the front row with his friends, Joycey and co. And I said, "To be or not to be, that is the question." I heard... I thought, what is it? Well, it is noble in the mind to have a... slings and arrows, aren't there? I thought, what am I doing? And I had a quick glance down to see if the fly was open, which, the cod piece was open or whatever.
Yeah.
And on, and finally there was real, proper laughter throughout the entire audience, and I didn't know why. At which point Rosemary Harris came on as Ophelia. And I put my hand to my forehead and realized I was wearing 20th century horn-rimmed spectacles.
You forgot to take...
I forgot to take my specs off. And how do I get rid of them? So I said to Rosa, "There shall be no more marriages," and I flung the specs at her.
It's great. And your Macbeth got a few laughs.
That got a few laughs
Was it meant to or not?
Was it meant to?
Yes.
No.
I think you were pulling
But,
everybody's leg.
Not really. What the chief cause, again, this awful sense of giggle and the ridiculous, is that as Banquo appeared, drenched from head to foot in blood, down the Waterloo Road came an ambulance.
You could hear it on
You
the
could hear
tape.
ding, 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 oh, and I caught Brian Blessed's eye, and I'm afraid we were both giggling.
It's
Precisely what we needed.
it's absolutely tremendous. But the great thing is you've had fun all the time.
All the time, and I hope it continues.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Wonderful stories and a little treat in there as well, as we heard the leg over incident again. It still makes me laugh nearly 30 years on.